Hello again, Ian Stokey with Mastermind Games, back with Warhammer 40,000 and a standard issue Warboss. So, Daka, Wall. Chaotic Red. So this is kind of a standard issue Warboss that's part of Gruk Face Rippa's, what is it? Boss mob, I think. Comes with 5 knobs. But apparently in earlier editions, Gruk Face Rippa had his own stats, and now he's just kind of been demoted to a generic Warboss with Power Claw and combo weapon with Rocket Launcher. But that's fine. And he's got himself a big bouncy squig. Trying to get a nice solid coat on the inside of the mouth here. That light has some pretty extreme shadows, but can work with it. The new setup is definitely helping the blurriness, which has been a problem, but there's still work to be done on it. Olive green, 09035. What's the magic angle on this? I think it's this. Different models need different distances, I've found, and bigger ones like this Warboss need to be held back a fair bit to not go completely blurry. Focusing issues have been getting better, but there's still work to be done on it, so I'll get it figured out eventually. Took forever to figure out a color scheme, and this is in one example where it kind of came to me at the last minute just a couple of days ago as I was finishing up all those Malifaux effigies. Comparing Orks to other factions, they have a smaller bag of tricks, but a useful one. Especially in the melee, which is their forte. You would think a melee-oriented faction would have a huge number of choices for hand-to-hand weapons, but the Orks don't. Got a couple of decent choices, all of which are simple but effective, actually. Okay. And that's pretty good. I think I'm going to need to let the squig dry a little more before I start it, but that's a pretty good start, actually. So, back once it dries. Okay, next, gonna get this cloth. Brilliant Blue 09116. Whoa, that came out erratically. Let's see here. I'm determined I need to do this part before I get the teeth. Or teeth, to use proper orc speak. Again, my lighting rig is helping on the focus, but it's also leaving me with some pretty heavy shadows in my field of vision as I paint. It's a little more difficult, but it's worth it to mitigate at least some of that blur that's been so problematic in these videos of mine. Go ahead and get the holsters for his sluggers here. Same color. And his wristband too, I think. Yeah, that's good for that. And Fire Orange 09006. I was originally going to do the squig a darker red, but that's kind of a common color, and I'm going to give the Warboss a kind of special squig. Now I'm probably going to have to do a second coat of this, so I'll do that off camera. But again, going for a sort of an 80s, 90s theme with me works, so that means bright colors. When you think about it, your average squig is basically as Pac-Man with legs. Alright, now I'll get the next coat off camera. Maybe do a little more on the blue, a little touch-up here and there. Back in a minute. You know what? Nah. Oh, come on, play nice. Okay. Next. Fur brown. My computer's making bad noises, so hopefully it plays nice long enough for me to do this. Too much water. Okay. Belt. Let's see, where's the other end of it? Right there. And the leather portion of the boot. And this one is an army painter color. A little tricky on that angle right there, but I got it. And the grips on the sluggers. which kind of funny that current rules say 2 sluggas. I get the desire to use them in combat since they're on the model, but my question is, if the Warboss has that power claw grafted to his arm, how does he manage 2 pistols at once? Juggle them? Maybe. Actually, the thought of an orc literally juggling handguns is hilarious. And fitting. Alright, let's see here. I want to make certain I've got all that brown before I move on. Looks good. So, yellow bone 09143. Let's get some teeth. Or teeth for proper orky pronunciation. Not sure if the teeth orcs sometimes wear meant to be trophies or emergency money, but either explanation would work. Nails. Yeah, pretty severe shadow right there with the power claw in the way, but and I'll do these protrusions on the back. Keratin as well. And my sister's assigned to have a conniption. I gotta look that up. I'm not completely sure if I'm using it right. Oh, one more tooth on the back. And then he's got a few hanging off of a necklace. I just overdid it. Look really bad right there, so paper towel to the rescue. Got too much water in the paint, that's the problem. Okay. Sun Yellow 09008. And get a piece of the power claw with this. And some wires. And since they've changed the rules on Warboss the way they have, I feel like now they should come out with a model that has the combo weapon with Scorcha. But you could mod one. And do one of the rockets bright, shiny, and yellow too. let that dry before I move on. It's a nice solid go. Okay. Next. Let's see here. Fire Red 09004. Here. I'll probably pick out some of the details on the power claw and other colors later, but I'm going to give it a nice bright orky red. Because outside of the old red ones go fasta thing, Orks seem to like the color in general. And this may need a second coat. In fact, I'm going to say it probably will. But I'm not going to worry about that right this second. I'll get the second coat off camera. Oh, I missed a tooth. Alright, I'll have to pick that out separately. It happens. So there's one kind of under his armpit here. Pretty much just getting armor on this one, but I will go ahead and get part of his banner. And this Warboss is one of the rare GW kits that only assembles one way. Got a armored loincloth. Make sure to get the back of it. Make the armor on the boots match. Now, my system is throwing a temper tantrum again. Boy. Once again, the more technology advances, the more and more it turns out like that Mel Brooks movie Spaceballs. Okay. Yeah, this is just about to hit 500 frames dropped in the span of less than 5 minutes before I hit stop here. I'm going to get a little bit of the combo shooter here. So this is just frustrating. And the most frustrating part of it, perhaps, is how random all of this crap is. And one of the rockets. Alright. I'll apply a second coat and go from there once this all dries, and hopefully my system stops having a temper tantrum. Alright. Uniform gray. Start with some rocks. Yep. I've unintentionally made this guy look like an old G.I. Joe character called Scrap Iron. But you know what? That works because even if it wasn't intentional at the start, quite a few of my... Oh, and I just noticed a skull. Here, I'll have to pick out later. I didn't catch that first. But anyway, quite a few of my paint schemes are homages to G.I. Joe. I found that's a nice, colorful line to base something around that can at least be taken semi-seriously. This coming from a guy who's been putting mohawks on orcs. Okay, let's take a little bit of that yellow bone 09143 and hit that skull really quick before I move on, since I see it now. But some details don't necessarily stick out right away until you apply paint to things. There we go. Not really visible at all. I think that's about the only angle you can see it at, and even then it's just kind of barely there. Stormy Gray 09088. We'll get some mechanical parts, which is plugged up, so that's what the utility of a common paper clip is good for. Looks like I've dropped some frames again, but not too many. Still, though, I've got to figure out why my system keeps doing this. How I can put a stop to it. So, I'm not getting the blade on purpose here. It'll be picked out in a shiny steel later. But I do want the moving parts of the power claw done in the gray. The hydraulics and all that. I'm not certain if the power claw the Orks use has a power field like similar Imperial weapons do, but what's interesting to note is in Warhammer Quest Blackstone Fortress, the Imperial robot UR025 has a power claw, so raises questions. Did the Orks get it from the Imperium? Just something to think about. Food for thought. And some stick bombs. Though for some reason with them hanging off the belt they remind me of golf clubs right here, and I'm not certain as to why. But then again, I am getting off a day where my brain more or less dropped the clutch just about the worst way possible, so my train of thought is definitely off the rails right now. Pick out the sluggers. Nothing too fancy here, just a couple of guns. Getting the pole hanging off the back. Now the horns will be picked out in a different color. The horns on the banner there. And the magazine. I'm jittering around a bit. I did something to my thumb on my left hand. I'm not sure what exactly. I'll go to the doctor if it doesn't straighten out in a couple of days, but I want to give it some time before I decide I need medical treatment. I've had things like that work themselves out before. Now, getting this sort of shield here is probably more to protect the rest of the combat shooter than the Ork holding it. Alright, so yeah, I think I'm gonna stop here for now. Come back in a bit. Getting there though. Okay. Plate mail metal. Forgetting to talk. The lighting definitely helps the blurriness issues I've been having, but it also results in some severe shadows that somewhat interfere with my ability to paint, but I'm learning to work around that. Okay. Claws. There we go. Chains. Including the ones his lucky teeth are hanging off of. And a little battery pack here, which would be hilarious if it just said Energizer or Duracell on it. and duct tape. I totally pick, well, to a certain extent, the Orks are very much a duct tape culture. And some more connecting points here, because it very much looks like this is physically and surgically installed. So, I think I caught somewhere that said it's not always the case, and sometimes the power claws wears a gauntlet. Shiny silver missile. Pretty much just picking random colors out to fill these rockets in with. And I'm gonna have to go back to that Stormy gray because I missed a barrel poking out right here. Okay. Bronze 09197. Filling in the shells in the magazine. And the shell he's using for an earring. And the cap on his tooth here. Alright. And I'm gonna take some vampire red. Yeah. I'll get this little bit of hair coming off the banner end. Okay. Do kind of a second layer on that. There. Okay. Now, looks like base coat, so once that's all dried up, I can cut his jaw there with some metal. Just some straight water to blot that out, absorb it. Once that dries, I can shade it and go from there. Alright, time to shade. Starting with, I'm going to play around with that a bit there. Brilliant Blue 09116. I'm going to try to play around with the tuft of hair hanging off the boss pole to make it look a little more distinct from the rest. We'll see if this works. Thinning the paint with 1 part water, 1 part paint, making it a wash. And apply. Let's flow into the recessed areas. And yeah. Well, don't know if this is going to work out the way I've got it planned out in my head or not, but we'll give it a shot. Marigold yellow 09007. Don't want to do adjacent areas when shading, unless you want your colors to run together, which generally you're not going to want. Trying to get one area at a time to help track what I've done and where I've been. Age Pewter 09196. And I have to let that dry before moving on, but it's a start. Okay, Blackened Steel 09205. Just carefully tracing over the plate mail metal from earlier. Nicked the knee there. That's what the paper towel's for. I may end up restarting on that tassel, that hair hanging off the banner. Now, Orks red 09005. And this will be the shade for the squig. Okay, going to have to dry for a bit before I move on. Okay, things are still drying, but I'm able to move on. 09077 Marine Teal. So I'm dissatisfied enough with the scalp hanging off the boss pole. I'm just going to redo it real quick here. So let's go with this bright blue and this bright blue-green, and say this boss knob scalped himself an Eldar or something. Let's do a quickie here, and I'll shade it later. And matte black. Now with particularly dark colors like this, you'll need to use 2 to 3 parts water to 1 part paint. And I'm just going to go over the functional parts of the power claw, the pistons and hydraulics and all that jazz. Stick bombs. You could totally picture an orc doing a drum solo with a couple of those. Sluggers, at least the more functional looking bits. Being careful on the magazine of the combo shooter. I don't want to hit the bullets inside. It's not if I can help it. Ha. Warboss pull here. Okay, now that's got it. Moving on when it's dry. Alright. Deep Ocean 09076. And I've hit a stage where I can only do 1 or 2 colors at a time for shading. Because if you do adjacent areas with paint this wet, it'll just blend in together, and you could work with that, but you may not want to. It just depends on the model, how you want to paint it, etc. So we'll just do the scalp here. And then Vampire Red. Trying to get the hand element without hitting the steel. Getting a nice solid coat on the shoulders. Notice I'm using the sides of the brush as well as the tip. Just bear in mind you have the entire tool to work with, not just one narrowly defined piece of it. Okay, let's see here. Now, in terms of highlighting, which is the next step, I only do the most readily visible areas, leaving some in shadow, but in shading I'll always get everything I can possibly get to. And if I can get a base coat on it, I can shade it. Being cautious through here not to nick the gray or any of the other colors, especially when I get to the missiles on the end. Okay. Being careful on the boots not to nick the leather. Okay. That leaves the leather, the green, the inside of the mouths, and the gray on the bottom, and that's about it for shading. Back in a bit. Okay. Ruddy leather 09109. Alright. So one of these days I'll figure out what keeps doing this random frame drop. I'll get it figured out eventually. So some of the last bit of shading is still wet, but it's dry enough I can work with it. Absorb some of that. Because this Warboss's trophy sculpt is probably the one bit of his kit outside of his weapons that he's going to want to keep clean. Okay, going from the top down, making sure I got everything in one area before moving down to the next. Like most orcs, this Warboss has cast iron cleats over his boots. I'm going to go ahead and do the insides of the mouths now. So, red brick 09001. Just plug it up. So, paper clip to clear. Now, most brands of paint are pretty good for this, but you do want something that's specific for modeling. So, Reaper Master Series, Army Painter Warpaints, Games Workshop, Citadel Paints, Formula P3 by Frontier Press. There's a bunch of good ones out there. It doesn't particularly matter which one you use, again, as long as you're using something that's formulated specific for the hobby. Craft store paint is really not going to cut it too well. I did have a friend that painted her Dungeons & Dragons models with oil paint, but that takes an incredibly long time to dry. There's no way to hurry it. But just something to keep in mind with materials selection. Alright. That's going to leave the green and the blue and the gray on the rocks. So probably 2 more sessions of shading before I can highlight in detail. Alright, things are dry enough I can move on. So, Ritterlich Blue 09115. Which is also clogged. Being careful not to nick the red I've just done or the green. It's a little difficult for me to see right there with the extreme shading going on because of the light, but the light is an absolute necessity, as it is actually helping out with that focus problem I've been having for so long. Now, being careful here not to nick the gun barrel sticking out through the holster there. Shoddily made, of course. Actually, as shoddy as Orc equipment looks, there's a particular line near the end of Book 1 of The Beast Awakens, or Arises, I can't remember the exact title right this second, where a member, oh shoot, where a member of the Adeptus Mechanicus, upon seeing the Orcs in action for the first time, which is also the first time they appear in the series, notates that their equipment, though looking primitive and shoddy, is actually masterfully crafted and does what it's supposed to do when seemingly weak armor takes bolter rounds. Okay. Need to hold off on doing eyes. That. Do some rocks. So Stormy Gray 09088. I can't prep for lighting just yet. But you know what? I don't even need to do any lighting effects actually. Maybe a blinking light on the box here. The power claw's hooked up to, but no. Sometimes you're going to make a decision at the last minute and sometimes reverse that decision just as quickly. And as I've said before, when I choose my color schemes, sometimes I think it out for months in advance. Sometimes something just pops into my head. And sometimes I end up changing what I was going to do at the last second when a better idea pops into my head. So that's just going to leave the green. And yeah, just the green, and I can do some eyes and highlight and wrap up. Alright, things are dry enough I can wrap up the shading, so Muddy Olive 09034. Let me get the right angle so I don't nick the red. Now this blends into the bionics, grafting the power claw to the arm, that's fine. So the blue did hit the green a little bit around the neck. I'll just get that. Make sure I get a nice, super solid coat there. I don't know if it's going to be in shadow here. Being careful around the earring and the teeth. Between the fingers. Just doing one section here at a time, front, back. Makes it easier to keep track of where I've been and what I still need to do. Alright, that's shading. Once that's all dried, I can highlight, detail, and wrap this up. Alright, hitting a few details. Vampire red. Need to do this before I highlight. Bit much. Filling in the eyes. And at least in the books, orcs are described as consistently having red eyes. And matte black. On this for now, I'm just going to fill in a few slots on the combo shooter. But I'm going to be doing gun barrels and exhaust later. So here and there. And that's good. I'm going to let that dry before I move on to highlighting. But almost done. Okay. Highlighting. Switching to a dry brushing technique. Vampire red. I've got some left over from the eyes. So, ragged feathered brush, straight paint only, no water. Rub most of the paint out. And apply to the area to be affected. So, focusing on readily visible surfaces only. Which means the Warboss, well, a little bit on his tongue. But mostly the slavering tongue of his squig ear. You want your brush completely dry. Pale olive 09036. So I'm going to be switching freely. Going against any raised edges. Working from the lowest area to the highest. And focusing on the most readily visible surfaces. Creamy Ivory 09144. No, not yet on this actually. Looking at it. 09117 Cyan Blue first. Oh, something rolled away on me. By using a little extra paint, you can do some touch-ups at this stage. This is a pretty subtle combination, but I like it. Burnt orange 09111. Which is plugged up. So again, focusing on the most readily visible surfaces, so I'm doing what's on the exterior, not underneath. I'm hearing noises my computer makes when it starts dropping frames. Okay. Looks okay. But I'll say this again and again and again, and it's one of the few jokes that will never stop being funny. Creamy Ivory now 09144. But the more technology advances, the more it's becoming like that Mel Brooks movie Spaceballs, where even in the future nothing works. Quite frankly, at this point, a lot of tech companies aren't even tech experts anymore because they're rushing things out before they're finished. Just to be the first one to get it out there. A little bit more right there to flesh out that thumbnail. And also using a bit extra near the gum line. A de-squig. Let's see here. Next, probably Phoenix Red 09005. So this Fire Red, Vampire Red, Phoenix Red is a bit darker than the iconic Evil Sun's Red. But it's close. If you want that iconic Evil Sun's Red, then go with Fire Orange as your shade, Phoenix Red, or Fire Red as your shade, Phoenix Red as your base coat, and Fire Orange as your highlight. That's going to be much closer to an iconic looking Evil Sun's Red. see, how am I doing on the... Okay. Well, this frame rate thing's getting a little out of hand here. I might have to cut this. Looks like it's stabilized. Boy. Marigold yellow 09007. It's a bit too much paint. It's better. There we go. Now there's a big orange squig. Lemon yellow 09009. Not too much of this one. In fact, just a few cables. I'll use a little extra paint here to take out that red. And then on this missile here. Misty Gray 09090. I just realized I forgot to highlight the skull over here, but it's not really that visible either, so I think I'll just leave it and call it good. I'm going to go with the most readily visible on the rock, though. Uniform gray. And in retrospect, I should have done this after the bronze. I just realized that, but I'm going to roll with it. Tarnished brass 09198. Ton of colors on this one. What the? Okay, that was odd. Let's try a different brush. I don't know what happened there. I put in the wrong one. Well, it's got it now. I don't know what I did before. Huh. Surf Aqua 09078. What? Alright. Weird clock, it's fine, it's fine. True Silver 09207. This might be the last one, actually. Okay, that brush is not going to work. Let's see. That'll work. Yeah, that other brush is too flexible for the job. It's a balancing act. There's so many little quirks with it that I can't even think of all of them I could list here. But it just takes a lot of practice to get the feel for what brush is most suitable for what specific task. Get that duct tape nice and shiny. Okay, that's highlights. Just a few more details. So matte black again. Using the same amount of water as a base coat. In other words, just enough to thin the paint. Going to fill in the... Alright, let's see if I can adjust my angle here. Just fill in the barrel on the shooter portion of the combo shooter. And then get the... put a dot on the visible barrel back here. Now switching to a flat brush. Carefully filling in the edge of the base, just cleaning that up. There wasn't too much spillage on this one, but it helps to give a nice finish. And this can be any color. I've seen a lot of GW models where they use a brown or a green. And once that completely dries, I can add some rock debris or talus to the base. So, back in a minute. Okay. Now to add some basing. Just taking some white glue. And some water. I'm using the most beat up brush I have, keeping nice and wet. I'm going to mix this into a solution here. Okay. Now I'm going to carefully paint around my Warboss's feet. Let that solution flow around. If it overextends, well, I'll show you what's going to happen. I'm trying to get a nice, solid layer here. trying to go up to all the edges. Okay. Now I've got a container of rock debris here, talus. I'm just gonna give him a dip, make sure that the getting the squig's mouth. It's a nice solid coat, so I'll take a spare brush that's dry and just push it away from areas I don't want it. Okay, this is not very sturdy. This brush is more suitable to oil than miniatures painting. So how it got mixed in with my miniatures brushes, I'm not sure, but I'm probably gonna have to pull that out of there. Alright, now that needs to set for a bit before I finish up. There's one more step. Alright, final step. Now that towel's had a chance to set, using a spray or brush-on adhesive and a glass eyedropper. Glass is specific because this stuff will bond to plastic quickly and clog it up all the sooner. Just carefully applying. You need to give your solution a chance to set first, otherwise this will just push it around and make big gaps and holes in it. Just let the material soak it up, and this will give it a rock-hard finish. And keep the flock, towels, or whatever basic material you use on the base, not in your box or bag or whatever you prefer to use for storage. And that's it. An Oracle Warboss. So, Daka Wall. Got a Black Legion character up next. Until then, I am Ian Stuckey with Mastermind Games, signing out.